colleagues, good afternoon. Let me start by acknowledging the 33 participants that are with us for this beautiful session, our webinar. I acknowledge all of you colleagues who are here to support us this afternoon. We are in Gauteng South HELIG webinar. So thank you very much for supporting us. We really appreciate that. The LIASA office officials, Kahiso, thank you for providing us the platform. And our manager, Anna Mary, Gauteng South Executive Committee. Thank you so much, team, for working so hard to do these preparations until it's a great success as we are seeing it. The librarians from different institutions that are here today to support us, we acknowledge you. Our important speakers that are here today to teach us more about the COVID issues and how they affected them in their different institutions. Thank you very much for preparing yourself. The HELIG National Office, if you are here to support us, thank you very much. We really appreciate that. Without any waste of time, as I indicated earlier that we are in our HELIG seminar, most of the people will start to question, what is this HELIG? Let me just in few words say to you, just to give you the brief of this HELIG. LIASA office is saying to its members, you can't be jack of all trades. You can't be jack of all trades. It's better for one to be the master of one. That's why when we join LIASA, we complete a membership form and there will be a request to choose 2 groups. The first one will be the group where you belong or your field where you are as your profession. And the second group will be where you are having interest in. For example, I'm in the public libraries. So my first choice is HELIG. And then my second choice, because I've got experience in dealing with schools. So my second choice is SLICELIG. That is the school libraries and youth services. So in LIASA, we are having different interest groups to cover all the spectrum, to cover all the LIS members, as much as it's so broad. So we are trying to cover everyone to enjoy his or her space. So today, we are led by HELIG Interest Group under the leadership of our convener, Ms. Nomoya Mahlangu. She will be facilitating the session for us. Ms. Nomoya Mahlangu is the Director for Research Support and Teaching and Learning at the University of Johannesburg. She is just a blessing to us as Gauteng South and the executive as a whole. So she's going to facilitate the session for us today. So in closing, let me just say HELIG is the acronym for Higher Education Libraries Interest Group. Its main purpose is to promote library and information services and library and information science within the sphere of higher education. The focus is on higher education. Hence, we are having different speakers from University of Johannesburg. With these few words, I want to say to my leader, Nomoya, over to you. The space is yours, my leader. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, leadership. Really appreciate the opportunity. Just a minute, so I get my right. So let me first greet everybody here present this afternoon. And a really special greetings to the chairperson of Liasa Gauteng South Branch, Dr. Ntabiseng Raduba, my fellow Gauteng South Branch Executive Committee members and Liasa members here present. And I also want to say to all of you, Happy Africa Month to all of you. As already mentioned, my name is Nomoya Mahlangu. I am the new Gauteng Branch HELIG coordinator. And on that note, as my leader has said, I actually do invite you to please join this Liasa interest group. So the topic of our conversation is about returning to work after COVID, or rather post-lockdown, because COVID is still with us. So we need to be careful with this post-COVID terminology. So we're going to reflect on our experiences, touch on changes and adjustments, and most importantly, the lessons learned from lockdown and post-lockdown periods. As we do this, colleagues, we hope that colleagues in attendance here today will also share or comment a bit on their own experiences. Because if we do that, we will all benefit from this open conversation. As mentioned, please use the Q&A chat to comment or to ask questions, and the panelists here will respond to you accordingly. You will also have the opportunity at the end of the session to unmute yourself to engage with the panelists. It is now with great appreciation and real excitement for me to introduce to you our panelists for today's conversation. They are all from University of Johannesburg Library. They can now perhaps put on their video so that you can see who they are. The first one is Dr. Elise Detroit, who is the librarian for teaching and learning. We also have Ms. Ivy Sehwe, the librarian research support. We have Renika Pandey, who is a manager, library social media. And we have in our midst Hepim Pahlele, who is the manager, library statistics. Now I'm going to give the four of them an opportunity, just 2 minutes or so, for them to give us a short description of their portfolio. Then we will start with the sharing and the conversation with them. So I'm going to start with Dr. Elise Detroit. Elise, would you please tell us who you are?
Thank you, Nomoya. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to share my experience as teaching and learning librarian at UJ with our attendees. I am responsible for facilitating, coordinating undergraduate information literacy training to students. We have online training as well as in-person training. I'm also responsible for preparing all the content of the different components of information literacy, and I liaise a lot with external and internal stakeholders in the university to ensure that our students' academic experience is enhanced and that we get the best out of our students through information literacy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elise. I hope I'm still audible. Ivy.
Thank you so much, Nomoya. It is such a great pleasure to be here and to be with all our esteemed colleagues from all over Gauteng and South Africa. So as already introduced, my name is Ivy Sehwe. I am the research support librarian at the university. And, you know, like most research support librarians, my role is really guided by our university's pursuit for research excellence and stature. So I therefore need to ensure that our research support unit of the library provides services to support researchers at each stage of the research life cycle. And this ranges from ensuring access to the best possible academic resources, supporting scholarly communication and publication, and promoting research output, as well as coordinating library workshops on different topics for our researchers. Thank you, Nomoya.
Thank you so much, Ivy. Happy?
Happy, you're
Just
mute.
unmute.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you so much, Nomoya, and thank you to Gauteng South HELIG for giving us this opportunity to come and share with colleagues. And I'm really looking forward to engaging and learning from each other. As said, my name is Happy Mpatlele, and my portfolio really is focusing on the library statistics, where I look at different library divisions in terms of resources and collection usage. So I do the collection and capturing, interpretation, and analyzing of the statistics thereof. And I also make sure that all the people who are in charge of populating their statistics are able to do so on the platform that is available for us, and giving them support in terms of training and the how-to. So basically, that is my portfolio, that is to focus on the library statistics of resources and collection that we have in the library. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Happy. Renika?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Nomoya. Thank you to everyone for attending. We are really honored to be part of this platform and this conversation. We hope that you enjoy the conversation with us and partake with us. And we're not doing PowerPoint presentations, as you will notice throughout the conversation. So we look forward to engaging with you. My portfolio is marketing and social media. I am the link to the university, the institution, and the library. I am also the link to our stakeholders, our relationship building at the University of Johannesburg Library. Thanks, Nomoya.
Thank you so much, Renika. Now, colleagues, without wasting any time, and now that you know who are these panelists that are sharing today with you, I think let's go right into the conversation with them. So, as I said earlier, today we are really here to share experiences. We are not here to educate or to do any other thing, you know, we're just here to share. And I think there's a big difference between sharing and teaching. So I think it is with that light that you should see this conversation. And with that, we do really expect that you will comment and give us perhaps your own experiences so that we too can learn from what you have done or lessons that you may have learned. So I'm going to kick off with a conversation with Dr. Elise Detroit. Now, Elise, what changed in terms of teaching and learning when the university reopened in 2022? Would you share that with us?
Thank you, Nomoya. My experience with the students are after the lockdown. In other words, when the university then resumed as normal. During lockdown, we had to put in place certain procedures and plans to reach our students remotely. In other words, we had to take the library to the doorstep of the students. So overnight, we had to go online only, and we had to abandon the in-person interaction that we had with students. So we had to then think of how we are going to reach these students in terms of offering online training, because not only was it important for students to be still part of the library so that they don't feel abandoned when they had to then receive their services from their homes or where they were stationed, in other words, either residences or in very remote areas, we also had to make sure that they were still part of the library community. So we moved in our face-to-face information literacy offerings to online, where we used platforms where they could then get these live training sessions. And we also offered then other types of instructional material to them so that they could then download information literacy training from their room 24/7. And that then basically we started doing recorded training sessions, live recorded training sessions, so the students could feel still part of being as a community in terms of fellow students. And we also did scripted short instructional video recordings. All of that we then uploaded to their learning management system, Blackboard, and they have access to that 24/7. When we then returned to the university in 2022, we had to take in consideration that we not only had new first-year students who were new to the university, but also take in consideration that in 2021, our first-year students in 2021 were also now brand new to the university because they have never put foot on campus. So they were regarded just the same as our new incoming first-year students. And also our third-year students or our senior students also then received their training or their library experience remotely. So all of these level of studies were then regarded as new incoming students. And then when the university informed us that classes will resume as normal, we had to come up with a plan how to reach students also remotely, as well as the students on campus. Then we had to embrace or take on new technology. We had to learn how to use that technology. So instead of now only doing face-to-face training or online only, we had to now incorporate or integrate embedded librarianship. In other words, we had to now not only take the library to the students who could not attend classes, but we also had to accommodate and service our students on campus. So really here was the opportunity where we could really implement embedded librarianship. That also involved then doing our offerings in a hybrid manner. Now, just to give you an example, I have an online information literacy module, and some of the departments at the university made this information literacy module compulsory for their students. And some of the faculties then requested that we had to offer these training sessions in person, but due to COVID restrictions, we could only in our university laboratories where we conducted these in-person training sessions could only accommodate 30 students because of the social distancing. But the specific department I'm referring to, the first-year students, are 280 students. So then we had to implement hybrid. So some of the students then could attend class simultaneously. We had to then offer this live in-person training session remotely, where the students then can log in into a specific platform. We used Microsoft Teams for that, and they then could listen to it remotely. So we had basically two sides of the coin, where we had to start implementing not only new technology that we had to learn, but also how we are going to then make available the same experience, because we don't want the remote students to suffer. We want them to have the same experience as the students who are now on campus. And that also involved that we also had to retrain ourselves or upskill ourselves in using new technology. And that is where our social media department with Renika played a very important role in how to then promote, how to also use technology so that these students can have access to the same services, and also upskilling other staff. I also have now a team of UJ library staff who is assisting me in doing the online training as well as the in-person training, because it is impossible for one person to do all of these and then also to produce an excellent product in enhancing the students' academic experience. Because remember, when the students come to university, especially first-year students, they are quite overwhelmed. Many of these students have not had access to a library, where they are either in very rural areas. So it is our task to orientate students in such a manner that they want to make use of the library services and change maybe negative experiences into positive experiences, that they want to make use of the library. And also with our training sessions, we have now also an opportunity to reach students after hours. So we only not have our information literacy offerings during the library hours, but we have it now after hours, where students then can log in, listen to our live sessions. Simultaneously, we record these sessions and they can revert back to it upon demand. And with that, we also have now started to incorporate, and later on my other colleagues will elaborate on that. So Renika will inform us and tell us a bit more how important it was for us now to build a solid relationship with social media, as well as Happy will explain how statistics have become now a very important philosophy in our new way of using the library. Thank you, Nemoya.
Thank you so much, Dr. Detroit, for that really mouthful sharing of your experience before lockdown and after lockdown. I think, Renika, as Dr. Detroit has now mentioned, can you just come in here and tell us how you prepared yourselves as a social media and marketing entity to address these new challenges and also just to support? How did you prepare yourself post-lockdown as social media?
Thank you, Nemoya. Thank you so much, Elise. I think we could never have done this without the support of our staff. Social media, we realized that we needed to understand where our students are. You know, I think pivoting from physical to digital, we needed to understand where our students are grazing. Let me just say it like that. I'm sorry for that word, grazing. We just wanted to see where they were, because they were not physically on campus, but each student at UJ, for example, has a smartphone or a device or a laptop. Each of them have some kind of social media platform, whether it's Facebook, TikTok, or Twitter. Each and every one had a platform. So that's where we needed to be in order to get the message across to our students. I think for me, it was, we needed to be prepared to switch gears and be fast about it. And I think from listening to students that were speaking to us online, they were engaging with us on social media. They wanted to know what we were doing on social media. So that is where we needed to put our training videos, for example. We needed to create videos, we needed to create content that was relevant to the time that they were studying at home and they were in lockdown. I think it's also very important that we built a very good relationship with the university social media and branding office. We as a library could never have done what we do in social media without the support of our institution, social media and marketing department. It's very, very important to build that relationship with them. As librarians, we couldn't, I'm sure most of you could recognize with this that we are really not social media fundies, but we had to figure it out and just go with it when we went into lockdown. And we got taught many lessons around social media. I think leveraging social media to build a strong digital community presence, we had a lot of help from the university. So I have to acknowledge that. And also as librarians, we are leaders in developing a strong sense of community, even before we went into lockdown, which makes sense because we've had thousands of years to learn how to best connect with our communities. I think librarians were even early adopters of the World Wide Web, cleverly and quickly incorporating the power and potential of the internet, for example. So when social media emerged on the scene, we didn't shy away from joining the fun, foreseeing the potential power that social media presence could provide for a library program, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, or any other emerging platforms. We were sure to find a strong and vibrant presence, whether it's library content presence or librarian presence. So the fast-paced and continually changing social media landscape was very overwhelming, and I have to admit at the beginning, but we went on, we pushed forward, we listened to our students. I think that was the most important part. We listened to our students, we know what they wanted, and it was easy for us to communicate as a social media and marketing team to the librarians to say, this is what our students want. And I'm sure Ivy will be the next person to speak about this, because we had many engagements to say, you know what, our students do not just want PowerPoint slides on social media. They want to see video content. They want you to be there present for them. They want to be engaging with you. They want to talk to you on social media. So yes, we had to listen to our students. I think that's important. Thank you, Namoya.
Thank you, Renika. Now I would like to move to Ivy. We have seen the link that exists between the core business of the universities, which is teaching and learning, and how it links with social media. You know, now I want to hear from Ivy how coming back to campus after lockdown was for research support. You know, were there any adjustments that you had to make with regards to research support since your return, Ivy? Just take us through your portfolio there.
Thank you so much, Nomoya. First of all, I think as alluded by Elise, most universities' response to COVID-19 crisis in 2020 meant that classes shifted online, and therefore the academic community, including our researchers, lost access to both face-to-face services and the library's extensive physical collections. So as we faced our new reality, the libraries or the librarians needed to foster a new vision where all services and information should be visible and available with flexibility, no matter the geographical limitations and challenges of time and space. So the changes we made then are continuing to shape, in my view, how we go forward, because even though we are back on campus, the services that we offer are still very much in an online environment, and our postgraduates are off campus most of the time. So, and I think this is mostly due to their work obligations and other responsibilities. So going to the changes that were made during COVID, I think that the experience and the measures that we put in place to support research are still continuing to evolve as we continue to carve the new ways of supporting our users in the new normal. For example, the COVID-19 pandemic has placed online research support and blended or hybrid provision as the new normal. So I think that we can safely say that the pandemic has been a catalyst for change and is reshaping our priorities. So to answer the question about the adjustments, Nomaya, that we had to make around research support, well, for me, it seems like it's a continual movement from where we left off when we were working from home or when we were working remotely to when we are back. For example, what we did when COVID struck was we reinforced our virtual services, as Elise mentioned, the short clips and how we used our social media. So again, we also designed some information packs that were also made available on our website and other virtual sites. And on the one hand, we also made fundamental changes around how we did our work. So for example, we created faculty teams, which were focused on supporting information requests. So specific training was also delivered to all librarians to enable them to work on a virtual environment. Now that we are back though, we find that there's still a need for virtual services. There's still a need for faculty teams, as this is also linked to the skill development of librarians. And there's still a need for creation of more digital content and the use of social media that support library services. Again, as the outbreak of COVID back in 2020 was characterized by lack of interaction and isolation, we are also continuing to offer our postgraduate support in the online environment. For example, we are continuing with what we developed back then, which is called a platform that is called the Postgraduate Research Lounge. This is an online space dedicated to research students undertaking honors, masters, and PhD students, and it really aims at building a research community at the university. Additionally, the Research Lounge provides a supportive environment where students can socialize, help each other grow by having an interdisciplinary conversation and possibly network for future opportunities. So still on the topic of being back, we see that our postgraduate workshops, for example, are still highly attended. As a matter of fact, we experience a sharp rise in the attendance of online postgraduate workshops when we fully moved online, and the number of attendances continue to rise even though we are back on campus. And I think what this is telling us is that postgraduates, especially our masters and PhD candidates, are still very much comfortable with the online training workshops. So we had to adjust to the demand for online trainings. And with regards to our lower level postgraduates, I think the situation is slightly different. We see them filling up our research commons space that we have in the library daily. So their needs are clearly different from those of our Ms and Ds, as they make frequent use of the discussion rooms that we have to attend classes, online classes, to work on group projects, or to attend class. This means that there is a lot of people who are connecting with each other in our spaces and who are also connected in the digital platforms. We have to adjust to students being highly present in the physical space and in the online space at the same time. And this speaks to the hybrid environment that Elise was talking about. We also see a sharp increase in the number of online queries. Now users prefer to send email requests for help than coming to the library in person. This makes for an interesting observation, provided that there is always a significant number of students in the library on a daily basis, but they choose to engage with us online. And perhaps this speaks to the changing landscape of service provision. So in conclusion, it is likely that some of the experiences we are having now will continue to shape how our library spaces and services continue to develop going forward. And it would be interesting to see whether there are common trends emerging across geographic boundaries as we move into a new era for academic libraries. Thank you, Nomoya.
Thank you, Ivy. Thank you so much. You know, just listening to the three colleagues that spoke, you can see that there was so much activity happening despite lockdown, post-lockdown. There were activities that really took place and staff were really hard at work. Now, how did we really show the value of everything that we're doing? Now, Happy is going to give us a sense of the role that was played by data collection and analysis in this. So Happy, what has been the approach to statistics collection and analysis before lockdown and during lockdown to really showcase all this work that the colleagues were really doing during these periods. Happy?
Thank you so much, Nomoya. From my side really is, as I've said, my portfolio is on the library statistics, and it touches on all aspects. What the three colleagues have already shared, for me, it is to justify what they are saying in terms of numbers. And I think colleagues will also agree that in the times that we are living, we need to justify our existence. We need to justify usage of our services and collections. And as much as we can do the motivations and memos, it has been confirmed that the numbers really are the ones that can give a better picture, though not just raw numbers, but numbers with statements. So what Elise have really shared with us in terms of trainings and the social media and research, where I come in is to bring together the activities and collection that have been used and put together the numbers, and we sit and we analyze these numbers. So because this for UJ Library, I can say we are fortunate because I am a full-time portfolio for this kind of task. And we have been doing this collection of statistics before the COVID or before the pandemic. Hence, I'm saying we were really very fortunate to have someone who looks deep into this. And we were always coming together on monthly basis, quarterly, to engage on these statistics, and also going into the annual report, the reflection of the value that the library is adding to the university as a whole. So from my side, what we did really was to make sure that the stats that we were sharing on monthly basis, when we moved to the pandemic period, we had to drastically change the way that we were looking at stats, because now we need to be where the students are. When the students move to online learning, then we had to also be there. Hence, Elise will then do the online training, and Renika will then push into our platforms. When is this training? Where is it? And the links. And also Ivy with different topics that they were training students on. Then we then had to weekly sit down and look at what picture are we getting in terms of attendance of these trainings. What resources are we pushing in for the students to be able to have access, not to, like we have said for UJ, we have saved an academic year, but it was an effort from all the divisions to push resources that were relevant for students at that time, so that they are supported in terms of their studies. So from our library, really, we did manage to push, and on weekly basis, we sat together, we shared, and we then realized that because we were all at home, and remember with our different roles, there are other roles that really, when we are at home, you cannot do anything about them because they need you to be in the library. So we looked at the gap in terms of staffing to say people are looking at queries that are going into emails and all that, and the flow of those queries, as we look at the numbers, were too many. We had to split now to look at people who can step in, who are not having their activities being able to be done at home, to step in and help others. And we really managed to split those colleagues into trainings. Others who were not doing trainings before, they did learn. We had to really, like Ivy said, the pandemic helped to that rapid change. We knew we had a direction where we were going, but actually the pandemic fast-tracked the direction that we were going to. And then we had to also look at the numbers, and the colleagues also to say, do we understand where we're going to with these numbers? What is it that we want to see? And the most important thing also is to say we need to we need to, sorry about that, colleagues. We need to have an understanding of the metrics, which is a basic, really basic thing to say within our library, what is it that we want to measure in terms of statistics so that it can have an impact in terms of the decision making. So we have sat and looked at all the activities, the services, and the collection in the library. And during the lockdown, there were some of the things that we really realized that they are not that important to look at. Like, for instance, obviously, the print collection, the library was closed. So where are we going? We're channeling ourselves to say, what is happening with the e-resources? Are the people there? What are the numbers saying? Then we get a picture there to say, even though we have our e-resources, we have everything in order, then at the later stage, then we realize that, oh, it looks like now all these resources have been pushed to open access. So the numbers are telling us now the people are not going into via the library into the databases or the ebooks. They are going straight into Google, and the open access is actually giving these resources because I believe the motive behind that was to make sure that during that lockdown, everybody is able to access whatever that they want without struggling in terms of logins, in terms of authorizations. So we have seen that with numbers. Hence, I'm saying we can do everything, but if we don't put the numbers down and talk to the numbers to say, what does this mean? So with Elise, she has done the trainings face-to-face before, but when it was lockdown, with Ivy, they then moved to online. Then with the online, as they were starting, because everybody was panicking as this pandemic started, everybody didn't want to be left behind to lose a year in terms of their academic studies. So the students were there. We have seen with the numbers that when they did their trainings from the beginning, we had abnormal numbers of students attending those trainings. And it was really showing that these students are looking forward to more and more. Therefore, a lot of repetition of topics were done. Like Elise said, even on Saturdays, they had to do trainings. And now the focus is shifting. The students are saying, now that we are back in class, we do not have time to attend the online trainings, but the videos are there. Therefore, we then look at the videos in terms of numbers. We are saying, how many videos have been viewed in this month as compared to the face-to-face. So what I'm saying is the statistics is really very important, and we need to get into the culture of believing that we need to use statistics as a measuring tool in terms of the decision makings in our libraries. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Happy. I think that because of time, we've got until 3:30, and we really have a lot to share. I want to quickly go into the questions because the whole idea is that we engage. So the first one, Dr. Detroit actually handled, it was around the digital divide. Yes, Elise is correct. The university offered data to each student, and devices for that matter, so that no students was left outside. So all the students were catered for. I see you, Renika. Do you want to just come in now? You can come in, Renika.
Thank you, Namoya. I think just to continue from what Happy is saying, I think with her collating stats on a weekly basis when we were in lockdown, during lockdown and post-lockdown, it helped us to measure the value of what we do. It was, especially if I look at social media, for example, it helped to measure the value of which platforms worked well with the students, what did not work well. And I think stats really, really helped us do that. Thank you so much, Happy, for getting us to do the stats on a weekly basis, because if we didn't do it that way, we would have not been able to measure the success of our social media platforms or any other platform for that matter. Thanks, Namoya.
Absolutely, absolutely. One good thing, as I say to colleagues, you know, nothing is good about COVID and lockdown, but for us, you know, one good thing is that statistics really came at the top list of what we did. And we really appreciate, because with stats, as Happy has said, we are able to see where we're going. We can see what the impact is on everything that we do. There's a question here for Ivy. Ivy, between the online and physical space, which one are you enjoying the most? Just briefly, Ivy, 1 minute. Ivy?
Thank you, Nomoya. Dr. Ntabiseng, well, I think that I just put an answer on the chat, but I think that we have to be flexible and make the most of both, like I said on the chat. So we still need to cater for our users in the online environment, and we also need to cater for the users who are on site as well. So I think that, you know, as we go forward, it is important for libraries to ensure that they strike a balance between, you know, we become hybrid libraries. So there's a balance between face-to-face and also online services, because that is what the users want, and we cater for different needs. So students also use our libraries for different reasons. With them having to attend class online, you know, they need to come into the library to connect to the internet, to find spaces to work on presentations or whatever. So I think it's important that we strike a balance between remote and on-site work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ivy. There's a question for Renika. Renika, how did the virtual environment influence the ongoing mandate of 4IR within the UJ Library?
Thank you. And that's from one of our directors, Elrina Debrain. Thanks, Elrina, for that question. I think with the guidance of our directors and our executive directors, we knew that we had to pivot into a digital space. And I think one of the things that we really did well, and we did very well, was we hosted virtual events. Before we went into lockdown, we had bought a Zoom license, and we used that opportunity to offer that Zoom license to the academy. You know, if you had a public lecture that you would like to give, if you had a training session, you would come to the library and you would say, okay, I would like you to host it. And that's how we managed to pivot immediately, by being engaging with the institution, with the students on a virtual platform. Also, Elrina, I don't know if you want to say something, if you have your hand raised. We did 283 online events when we were working remotely, and we managed to build that national relationship and international relationship in a virtual space. And when we came back after a post-pandemic, we decided we needed things like hybrid rooms. So we raised money. We have 2 hybrid venues at the moment. And the best thing is we also have a podcast studio. Podcast has become very popular in the academic world. We offer our podcast studio as a service to the university to be able to do anything from a general conversation with your students, or something you would like us to upload for you in teaching and learning. We were very happy that we had the support of our executive director and directors and the university to reimagine our spaces in that way and have the podcast studio. We did the events with our events and marketing team. And this platform, we use the virtual platform to really build international relationships. And we do not forget our international support, and hence we hold hybrid events as well, and we invite them to it. I hope I answered the question, Elrina.
Thank you, Renika.
Thank you. I think we're going to move on. There's a very interesting question here. Any significant change in academic performance during COVID? I can answer this by saying I may not give you the exact percentages. However, the university was pleasantly surprised to see that the students' performance was actually extremely good during COVID. And I do think that it really could be because of all the support that was provided to our students. I think it also showed us that I think if you try and meet their needs in terms of the gadgets, in terms of data, they would do well and they actually like the online space. So yes, that's just in short. I'm going to now just quickly continue with a few questions so that we can share a few things before we stop at 3:30. Let me just ask my second round of questions now. So Elise, in your case, what do you think were the expectations of the students when we returned from lockdown? Because everybody was so used to be at home for like 2 years. We've been working remotely. Elise, what was the expectation from students?
The expectations from students, in my experience of teaching and learning, I think they thought that they knew everything. And then they realized when they came back on campus, everything basically changed. You know, a student, if you are in isolation, so you might share tidbits with your fellow students, but you're not in the class situation where you can compare notes with each other, where you can collaborate. You had to basically do it in isolation. And my experience was when they came back, they thought they could pick up immediately where they left off. And that is not possible. Because remember, one size does not fit all. And the students then had to get to know the library from scratch. As mentioned, the majority of the students have not been on campus for 2 years. And you know, if you are not used to an environment, you tend to forget how it is supposed to be, what you can do, who can you contact. So that is where the library was key, to show to students still that we are I could say the glue that holds their academic experience together. We are the architects that can help them. They can't do it on their own. They can't come to the library and do searches on their own if they don't know how to do it. They still need the assistance of librarians, as well as all the support at university. And also that they had to change their way of receiving instructions. In other words, they could not come to a classroom that could accommodate 400 students. They were now split into different spaces according to the social distancing restrictions and requirements. They then had to change their way of thinking in terms of, I would say, their cognitive and affective way of thinking, in terms of embracing the face-to-face as well as using technology simultaneously with their traditional method of receiving instructions, and also the use of the library and the library services. We have in the library, on each of our levels, I'm using APK, our Auckland Park campus, as an example. We have 6 floors on our APK campus. Our television screens have been actively implemented to create awareness to the students of the services, because now they have to again start from scratch, how to watch, how to learn, what to look out for. And we had to continuously think of new methods to create awareness of our library services. We have our library mascot, Funda, which is also being used very actively on social media to create awareness to the students. For example, library rules and regulations, take care of your personal possessions, creating awareness on psychological issues, what to look out for. So that is how we then started to make it or create awareness so that the students can then function as normal again.
Thank you so much, Elise, for that. As you can see, there was a lot of almost like refresher for those students who have been here, and a lot of really getting the students up to speed. So now let's move on to Ivy. Ivy, has there been on your side any challenges you had to overcome since you shifted from remote to on-site working?
Well, there have been a few challenges, Nomoya, and really everything started in 2020. So I think the challenges that we had then are still imminent, and some of the challenges are sort of being sort of shaped by, you know, where we are and what the requirement is from the requirements are from our users. So one of the challenges that I had was around, you know, the role of a librarian as a teacher. Now, and in a good way, so challenges can also be lessons. But now that the lockdown or COVID pandemic forced us to go the online route in terms of how the students were taught, librarians also had to adapt. So, and we had to teach our students online in terms of the trainings or the workshops that we conduct. And as we know, you know, one of the big things around teaching online is how engaged is your audience. So it's really not easy to teach in an online space as opposed to a physical space, because you, first of all, you do not know who your users are, you cannot read their faces, you cannot see when they are lost, and you cannot really see if they are paying attention. So I think as a librarian, you know, I needed to also have some insights on what are the skills that are needed to teach, not only teach, but to teach in the online space. What are the different strategies that one can use to engage with the users, especially for the online classes and so forth. And as a result, this was not only something that was experienced by me. I mean, on the one hand, we had to learn how to use the new technology. On the other hand, we had to learn how to use this technology to teach in a manner that is sort of engaging and exciting for our students. So we were really thrown in the deep end. And one of the things that we did was we then, training was arranged for us where, you know, like an extensive workshop where we looked at the theories of teaching, the pedagogy and so forth, because as librarians, when we are trained, we are not really trained to become teachers. So it's something that we just happen to do. But, you know, the question is, do we have the skills? And because we also developed the honors module, something similar to what Elise was talking about, the information literacy module for undergraduates, but this was more for honors students because, you know, because of that disconnect, it was important for us also to keep the conversations about research going. So it was important for us to also make sure that our honors students also get the support that they need, because these are our future masters and PhD students. So we developed an honors module, which is still continuing now. And, you know, because this was something that was new and this is still continuing now that we are back, I find myself having to partner with faculties, and the conversations that I go into sometimes are new. So it's like I have to play many roles. I mean, I play an advocacy role, I play a coordinator role where I lead and I develop and I manage content for this module. I become an instructional designer. And you know, so these are some of the challenges that can also be used as opportunities for learning. So all of this, I think it means that as librarians, we need to become lifelong learners ourselves. I think we should not only focus on helping our students to become lifelong learners, but we should also be curious, open, flexible, seek new opportunities for becoming lifelong learners ourselves. Thank you so much, Nomoya.
Thank you. Colleagues, panelists, I'm going to ask you to be a bit brief now because we're running towards the end so that we can then open for questions and our attendees can unmute perhaps and ask us, maybe leave like a 10-minute or so for that. So I'm going to ask you to really be a little bit brief when you answer. I'm going to move on to you, Renika. So having listened to everything that everybody has said, social media had to come in and make sure that students are aware and in essence support the librarians themselves in making sure that students get the things that they need to get and are aware of how the library works and so on and so forth. There was so much ground to cover, and social media came in to close that loop. How do you then, Renika, measure the value of social media in the library? Can you briefly just share with us how you measure the value of social media?
Thank you. Thanks, Namoya. Yes, as I said earlier, I think with collating of stats played a huge role in for us to show the impact of social media and our social media platforms. We created stats on every platform that we had. We looked at the engagement rate. We looked at the impressions. We looked at the reach of our audience. But I think the most important thing, and it's something that Ivy has also said earlier, is we still needed to be interactive with our social media followers. We needed to be more engaging. I actually have a little note that I made for myself, and I'm just going to quickly read it. One of the social media marketing tips for libraries, I think it's number 2 on my list. It says, as well as posting your own content, interact with the content of other users, have conversations, and see what else is out there. Be present in the online community. If you are not present on the online community, you're not going to understand what they actually would like us to be, what content they would like us to be sharing on social media. And also, the other thing that we learned as we went along is that there's something on social media that's called polling. It's audience polling. And one of the students had wrote a comment on on our chat, and I'm going to read his comment. It says, using audience polling to elicit responses from multiple students rather than just hearing from one individual in a physical class environment. So I think that was a very good comment for us. Thanks, Namoya.
Absolutely. Here you can see that, I like the fact that everything and every time we do something, we kind of evaluate it in a sense. And I like that a lot, Renika. I'm going to now go to Happy. Happy, now that we are back on campus, right? I think this question was asked earlier on the chart. How does our usage stats look like? Just briefly, how does the library usage statistics look like?
Thank you, Namoya. So after 2 years of working from home, we came back this year, and the focus really for the library, the UJ library, is to reconnect. We're reconnecting with the students, we're reconnecting with staff, and also reconnecting in terms of statistics. So we had to look at what happened previously when we were on lockdown and what is happening now in terms of resource usage and collection and services usage. And really, to get the picture better in terms of that, we needed to go back to the drawing board in terms of understanding the importance of stats. I then had to have a road show kind of with different departments where I had to sit with them, and we then had to interrogate their activities in their spaces to say, what is it that you want to show? Why do you want to show it? What value is that statistics that you want me to put out there? What value is it adding to the library and to the university as a whole? Because we also need to, as I said, to bring numbers and statement when we do the broader, like the annual report and all that, to justify our value into the university, as we are all aware also with when we need money for resources, you need money, budget for all these things, you need to say because the numbers are saying, you know, you don't just give a request for a certain database without saying how much value is that database adding to the outcome of the students. So I went into different departments as we started this year. I went to Renika, I went to almost everyone in the library, really. And it was interesting to know that from now, I know that we have the same understanding of what is it needed with statistic, why are we doing it, the importance of it, and really to our ED, Prof. Maria, for making us understand how important stats is, and for us to strive to always make it look better and make it easier to understand. So with that, I am now clear that the data stewards, which are colleagues who are responsible to populate certain statistics, they know what they are populating there, they know why they are populating there, and the accuracy of it. If we are not showing any governance to the statistics, then there is no value. The statistics must be accurate, it must be accessible, and colleagues really are taking it serious to be accountable. Like Renika said, I'm doing this weekly. They know that by Thursday, everybody must have submitted. And now it is a culture here at UJ Library that everybody is able to do that. And if there are any hiccups, we are a team where we call each other, we drop an email to say, I'm supposed to do this, the system is doing this, what must I do? So really important that we are now having a same understanding, the literacy really of data, to understand what data is all about, to understand what my role is. Then with that, we are really are in the right track in terms of understanding and populating in the correct way.
Thank you so much.
Nomoya.
Thank you, Happy. There's a question here on the chat around transforming acquisitions and collection services during COVID. How did statistics play a role in balancing acquisitions of information resources material? Before Happy comes in, I just want to make my own observation in this regard, Bridget. Thank you for the question. That one of the things that I'm going to just mention is that during COVID, we found that our e-course reserves, that is the short loan material, was highly used. And of course, we had to digitize and make a lot of book chapters available and so on and so forth. And statistics that we collected showed that students were really needing this service. They really appreciated it. That was one of the services that really just shot up. I mean, we just digitized and made it available, and they just consumed and consumed and consumed. So our statistics, our data was telling us that we saw a need, and it was indeed appreciated. Students really dependent on that. And we didn't change much in terms of our acquisitions and all of that, because a lot of ordering and planning happened way in advance and stuff like that. So we didn't cancel databases necessarily, but we found that the usage of databases went down during COVID. And that was mainly, we think, because a lot of articles and information was kind of available open source. So the vendors and publishers were making information available for research. That was an interesting, and so that affected our statistics as well. That's just a comment. Maybe colleagues would like to come in there, their observation around that.
Okay, so from my side, like Nomoya has already said, our textbook and prescribed books were already done a long time ago. And this was really a teamwork from the university departments and the library. where lecturers were communicating with the library staff in terms of the textbook or the articles or content that they seem important for their students. Remember, these students were at home now. They were not going to come to the library. So the lecturer will then indicate to the circulation staff to say, this is what is important for the student to use at the moment. Then our staff will then copy that and make it accessible online so that they are able to use that. And as Nomoya has said, we have seen really a higher usage of those we call it electronic course reserve. And it's the main thing that really helps the students, because remember, with other materials, we were in a situation where everybody was panicking. Everybody wanted information that is readily available, that is relevant. So they didn't want to be all over. Hence, the lecturer saw a need that they recommend what is important for the student to use for that time, whether it's assignment support, whether it's for preparing them for exams. What was available was the resources that they were going to use, other than being all over the place and trying to access all the resources. So the acquisition, the collection never changed. Everything was still the same. The approach to the way that students can access in terms of supporting online learning is the one that changed, and it helped a lot. We have seen with the numbers that the electronic course reserve in different campuses with the contribution of different departments really worked. Yes. And that's a way to go. They are still doing that. It has been done during COVID, but it hasn't stopped. The lecturers are still doing it. Thank you.
Yes, and just to add, I do think that to a certain extent, our acquisitions department were ordering a lot of ebooks, e-materials, yes, where they could. Although, you know, as we all know, as librarians, there's a limit with these e-resources. You know, only 3 users can use at the same time and all of that. So it's not all really great. But yes, Stats was really helpful. I'm going to move on to my next question with my panelists here, and they are going to be brief so that we give you an opportunity to just come in as well. But this is a very important question I'm going to ask Elise, because I think a lot of us here would like to really know how she prepared to address these challenges that she experienced when we returned from lockdown, you know, with teaching and learning. I think that is really important for us to understand. So Elise, please take us through how you prepared to address your challenges.
Well, Namoya, thank you for that. Never assume anything. So you can't assume that the student will know this. You can't assume that the student will know where to get the information. So it was very, very important to understand our student needs, because needs also change. So that is where research also is very important. We have to do research to understand our student needs and our student profiles. So to prepare then for this change, I would say post lockdown, when we came back to resume our studies, the student studies as normal, we had to, first of all, very important, we had to collaborate with other support services as well in the university. That is our Center for Academic Technology, as well as with our faculties, so that we had an understanding of our students. Then we had to prepare in terms of learning new technology. We had to collaborate with other staff so that we can, at the end, produce a very valuable service to the students, social media, and also our other general librarians. What we did was our general librarians who service at our circulation desk and at our general desk when you come into the lobby of the library, I have now integrated them as well in the teaching and learning environment, and they were trained to train students online. So they were taught how to use learning management systems, video conferencing platforms, also how to be a teacher, because you can't work in isolation. It's absolutely impossible. You have to collaborate and have the support of a network within the institution. So that is how we then prepared, and then the tried and tested. So we tested all of the aspects on ourselves before we then started to then deliver these services to our students. Thank you, Namoya.
Thank you so much, Elise. You can see, colleagues, that what is coming out of the lessons learned and what we experienced post-lockdown, there are so many great things that came out. I mean, we see our general information librarians growing and becoming trainers and really excelling in this. But because we were forced by the circumstances, COVID forced us to really look at all the resources that we can make use of, but most importantly, to grow and develop staff in the process. I really like that very much. So Ivy, earlier on you spoke about, and just please be brief, I would like us to perhaps stop at 23 minutes past. Earlier on, you spoke about the challenges you had to overcome since you returned to office. I'm interested to know if there had been any lessons learned in all of this. Just briefly, what were the lessons?
Thank you, Namoya. I think because of the transformed academic landscape, the issue of, for me, that's very important, the issue of the librarian as a teacher re-emerges. And I think as we go ahead, we need to ask ourselves further questions like, to what extent are we well-versed in our role as teachers? Do we understand educational theory or teaching pedagogies? Are we able to set curricular learning goals and learning assessments and so forth? I also think that because COVID has affected how students use our spaces, so because I'm based in the research commons space of the library, I see how students are using the honor students, how students are using our spaces differently now. And I think there is a need for some review or observing this, because this might inform, the new path or route that we need to take around construction, some major or minor renovations, or continuous improvement with smaller changes where necessary, just to suit the new needs of our users going forward. And then lastly, I think I can speak about something that is related to my portfolio. There seems to be several research trends that are reshaping how librarians can support research. For example, there is a need for more complex, coordinated, and collaborated research methodology. And this is all due to technological advancements and funding limitations and so forth. So we find that researchers have a lot more to do than previously. It's not only about pursuing their research topics. So they need help navigating the more operational or administrative parts of their work. There is a need for applied research with social or economic impact. That is why we hear conversations about the SDGs and the impact in research. So what role can librarians play going forward in all of this? And there's a need for technology-enabled research and scholarly communication. So, are there new technologies that we can use to support our researchers in conducting academic research or to disseminate their results in new ways? So I guess the big question here is, how can we change our spaces, services, and maybe staffing to better support the recent trends in research? Thank you, Namoya.
Absolutely, Ivy. We are indeed in transition. As you put it, we need to look at structural readiness. Are we ready for this? Like right now, we are having this webinar. Do we have offices that are suitable for us to do these webinars? Or are we still stuck in open plan offices? So now it's like there are all these new demands from academic institutions and all over, by the way. So I'm going to move on quickly. Now, perhaps before I do that, from the audience, is there someone who would like to ask a question? I think I'm going to just pause and do that because I'll feel really bad if we don't give our attendees an opportunity to ask. If you do want to ask a question, you can just unmute yourself and introduce yourself and ask or comment. Just for this moment, we still have a lot to share, but I think let's just pause and give you an opportunity. Anyone? You can just unmute. All right. Okay.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
Okay. You said that a lot of the books, obviously, they couldn't take physically out and you digitize them. What about the copyright issues? How did you deal with that?
Thank you so much, Anastasia, for that question. We have a copyright officer in the library. And so we followed the copyright regulation to the T. For instance, we will make a copy of a chapter. That is 10%, you know? So we really used that to the T and we made sure. And I think, you know, of course, the challenge had to do with academics, you know, because they say this book, the students have to use this book. So we came in and we said only a chapter and, you know, use it, finish and release another chapter some other time and not the whole thing at once. No, we didn't. We just followed the copyright rules to do that. Any other question? Or comment? Just unmute because I can't see everybody. Because if you raise a hand, I won't see it. Just unmute and comment. All right. Okay. I'm going to now ask Renika to just tell us about social media a little bit. What do you typically post, Renika, on social media? And how have you increased your following? How did you increase the following that you have? And really, what kind of things do you post? Because I think this is beneficial to most of us here present.
Thank you. Thanks, Namoya. Okay, we post a lot of what we do as a library, and not only were the kind of events that we do, which we host in partnership with the faculties, but also training videos, resources, anything new that was bought, any new software that was purchased, a new database. We are so, we post 3 times in a day, just to give you an idea of how much of content we have to share with our students. We post in the morning, we post again in the midday, and again later in the afternoon. If there is nothing really happening in the library, if it's a quieter period of time, we will go back and reshare information. And I think typically it's not about what our librarians want to share, but it's what our students want us to share. And it's also communication with our students about anything that's happening at the university at the moment, because sometimes they feel that they are not so much engaged or they are not heard, and we give them that opportunity to be heard. We have an events program, which we are very proud of. We use this platform to engage with our university, with our academics, with our students. We invite them to visit the library. Now that most of our students are back, we would like to reconnect with them, to show them what the library is all about, and obviously to do activation campaigns. I think that for us has been huge this year.
Thank you so much. Having said that, I want to pause again and see if there are any comments. Otherwise, I would like to give the panelists each just 1 minute to tell us, in general, what lessons, if you've answered this question already, you can pass, but what lessons have you learned with all that has happened during COVID, post-COVID? Just in 2 minutes. I want to start with you, Happy. Just 2 minutes. I want us to really finish on time, or in a minute, by the way. Thank you.
Okay, from my side really is to say we must take the statistics serious, and we must really know that we must do away with silos. We need to bring our activities and resources ourselves together to discuss the usage of statistics in our spaces. And by so doing, then we have a better understanding of what is expected from us. So it is really important that we have also platforms or tools in place that we can use to capture these statistics, and we must be open to learn. Hence, we are saying with this pandemic, a lot has happened. And for us at UJ Library, we know the journey that we have traveled with statistics. We have started with the Excel spreadsheet where most of people are still and we have been moving to really try to get a platform that will give us that visualization of statistics, that we can see statistics at a glance, you know, those dashboards that we are able to display or to present there in order to make better decisions in terms of what resources we must purchase, what students do need. And really the main focus going forward for us is to say, we have really tried to be active with the statistics, and we are looking forward to see that in future we are able to connect with the students' activities in their class and the resources that they use. So that collaboration and that impact study is what we are looking forward to do, so that we can not only limit ourselves into what resources we are giving, but also to say what impact are these resources or the numbers that we are seeing in terms of students' outcome. Are the students passing because they have used our resources? So as much as we have statistics in place in the library, we need you to take it out there to the departments. We need to bring them on board. We need to see what platforms are available from their side that can be compatible with ours, so that we can do an overall project that is beneficial to everyone in terms of the university as a whole. So by so doing, then we'll be showing the value that the library is adding in terms of teaching and learning and research. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Happy. That was more than a minute. Now, Elise will have just half a minute.
Sorry, Elise.
Elise, just in half a minute, what have we learned?
We have to be reinventive and able to be sustainable.
Thank
Short
you.
and sweet.
Short and sweet. Renika, short and sweet. What have we learned?
Okay, I think above all, the pandemic has taught us that we need to own our brand. We need to be ready to take advantage of our new opportunities that present themselves. We need to have a library presence in our institution, in places where your target audience is spending their time online. Be willing to stand behind your values, be authentic in your communication and your partnerships, and be ready to move a dime.
Thank you so much, Ivy. In half a second. I don't know if there's such a thing.
I think that we have learned that in a crisis, an organization or libraries can re-emerge with a fresh sense of purpose and direction. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the panelists. My leader, Chairperson, Dr. Raduva, my sincere apologies that we ate some of your time to conclude this session. I would like to hand over to my leadership at LIASA. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you for everybody. I'm handing over to Sifiso, I think.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. I'm not sure if I'm audible enough.
You
on my
are.
side. Okay, I would like to take this opportunity to thank especially our guest speakers, our national officers, Liasa, for taking this time and opportunity to accommodate us and to come and share their experience that they have learned prior to COVID and then post-COVID. And we have learned a lot from the panel, and I believe also with my colleagues and also with participants. I'd also like to thank them for taking the opportunity to join us on this lovely webinar, where we all learned a lot. And then I believe some of the discussion that we had, what we learned, we'll take them back to our workplaces and then implement some of them where applicable. Thank you so much. And I would also like to thank the Gauteng South Branch executive, including the committee, for taking the opportunity also to award us the platform to share and learn from our colleagues at University of Johannesburg, including also from the national office. Thank you, Anna Marie. Thank you, Kagiso, as always. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you.
Okay, now
Thank you for affording us the opportunity. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. No, thank you. That's all, colleagues. And then please, in future, also when we have seminars, please join us as usual. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.